probably the most gratifying part of this whole project is every time someone new, friend or family, associates, what have you, come step through that door for the first time. People I've known my whole life, or people I've just met just through work associations or church, etc.
Yeah.
And their initial reaction is just, wow,
Yeah.
this is cool.
Yeah.
This is really cool.
What did you think about the experience of building? You built the barn yourself,
I
right?
did, yes, yeah. So having a pretty good background in building, never trained as a builder, never licensed as a builder, but having spent my youth building decks, both at my parents' house or at my parents' house as well as a job, painting houses, and we built some decks along the way.
Right.
Became very familiar with how to use, obviously, power tools, hammers, that kind of thing. But beyond that, structural integrity, like what is involved in making sure you have posts set right and beams to do this, to hold the weight of a deck, etc.
Yeah.
Gave me what I believed, to be a pretty good background in what's required. So, definitely, I would call myself a little above average as far as capability in terms of building knowledge and use of tools, etc. But an everyday person could do it, absolutely. So, that was my mindset going into it. Honestly, the day the truck arrived with the lumber, the kit on it, that's when reality hit.
Right.
It's like, okay, this is big boy lumber.
Yeah.
We're not talking 2x4s, 2x6s.
Right.
Having said that, it went together very well. It just required a little more thinking in terms of developing the plan on how to assemble it, to get it from just being dumped in the yard off of a truck to over here to the actual pad and beginning to assemble it. But beyond that, it was I felt like I had a pretty good skill set, and then that reality check, and then it was okay. Yeah. Let's tackle this thing.
You had some friends help you with the barn. Well, talk about that. How did they like the project, and how did that work? The dynamic work.
Absolutely, yeah. So, for any of my helpers that happen to maybe ever see this video, thank you again. Can't say it enough. It seemed like a big ask at the time to have those guys come help us, but in the end, at least two of them. I mean, my brother was one. He's blood, so he kind of had to help me.
Right.
And he lives only 4 miles down the road.
Yeah.
But the other guys, they're we go back a long way, and so you had a foundation of good friendship to begin with. But those a couple of those guys came weekend after weekend. Our process wasn't to get it done in a week or two. It was, we started in the early summer. We had to get done by September 1st.
Right.
Because that was the wedding day. So priority one was we started there and worked backwards. So weekend after weekend, it was texts, hey, who's available, who wants to come out and help, at least till we got to a point where I could do a lot of it myself, which was still tough, but it just took some time to get to that point. But back to the original story here, two of those guys at minimum came forward weekend after weekend, to the point where I said, guys, you have families, you don't have to come help me on this barn every single weekend.
Right.
And the response almost immediately was, this is fun. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Never done something like this before.
Right.
It's on a grand scale. Yeah. And the way that things started to fit together, it was easy to get them to come back because they wanted to see the next step in the progression. Within a couple of weekends, we had the basic shell up, and so the real work was those first couple weekends.
Right.
And that's when the dramatic change took place. The finished work, as with any project, is where things kind of slow down a little bit, and that's where I didn't need the help at that point.
Right.
So you're really looking at a condensed time frame where you're going to need multiple hands on deck, 3 to 4 guys at minimum, and some small equipment to make things really progress quickly. And then it's the finished work. But they loved it. They still talk about it. They still comment about it. When they come out here, man, I remember putting that beam up over there, and
yeah.
couldn't believe how quick it went up and how slick it all went together.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a modern version of a barn raising.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Precisely. With a lot fewer people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have the luxury of some power equipment.
Right. Yeah.
And didn't have to. You do a lot of rigging.
Right.
You know, when you're doing it piece by piece.
Right.
It's a little simpler to manage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
If somebody didn't think they could do the frame themselves, and they had a contractor do the frame,
Mm-hmm.
and then they did like the siding and the girts and purlins and that type of thing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of a skill level do you think that would require?
Oh, that would dramatically reduce the need to have a lot of structural knowledge.
Right.
Because if you hired a crew to do the frame, they're going to put up a good number of your bents and purlins along the way.
Right.
Just simply as bracing.
bracing,
Yeah, absolutely. So if they were putting top and bottom on, for example, you know, an average do-it-yourselfer with a small set of scaffolding or a step ladder can, you know, do the rest of the circumference of the building,
Right.
depending on your sidewall height. But yeah, now you're talking a chop saw and a screw gun,
Right.
a little bit of, you know, someone to hold the other end of the board, and you're off to the races,
Right.
putting those things on. So
Right.
that would significantly reduce
Yeah.
the skill level,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think your purists, which I think are getting less and less nowadays, you know, would think, you know, it's not the old traditional barn, but honestly, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
It's just modern joinery, and the modern joinery it's slick. It gives it a modern look, and that's what people are looking for these days. I don't really think that should be a hesitation for anybody, and I have not had one person step inside this barn and say, man, it would be really cool if it had pegs and mortise and tenon joints. It's like, no one has said that.
Yeah.
They're like, I like the look. Powder coated black bracketry with bolts. It gives it a, you know, it'll last forever.
Right.
You and I know this. It'll last forever, and that I think has just been the neatest part of this whole thing is just people's reaction coming in.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways that you could treat the inside of these barns, whether it's partial lofts, full lofts, the different ways you could do the stairs to make it so functional for you.
Right.
So that's what I would add to anybody that's taking an interest in this, is that it really is a neat structure, and it upgrades your property. People walk in every time. Wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What year was it that you built?
2013.
2013.
So I get my math right here. Yes.
Okay. So it's 2017 right now, so it's been 4 years.
It's 3.5.
So this is about
4 years.
worth
Yeah.
of weather.
Yeah. This is. Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it'll be 4 years heading into, but in about another month that we started. We started going into the 4th of July time frame is when we started the project, and we completed it the day before the wedding.
Day before the wedding.
Yeah, it wasn't complete, but it was complete enough. The loft wasn't in,
Right.
which was intentional. We had planned on delaying that, but
Right.
you know, and certainly there was some weekends in there that other priorities took hold, and so it wasn't a constant every single day working on it from spring until or from July until September. It was real heavy, concentrated, focused effort in the beginning to get it to a point where it was essentially weathered in, and then it was just as I had time.
Okay. So did you work on it just primarily on the weekends, or did you? Okay.
Yeah. Other than the first holiday weekend, first couple days, the first 2 weekends was a pretty aggressive push. I think I think we did 4 days in the beginning,
Okay.
and then 2 days the following weekend,
Okay.
around that 4th of July holiday time frame. May have been a week before that. I'm getting a little confused on when we actually started,
Right.
but it was right around that time frame.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was very focused at first to get the shell up when I knew I had the help.
Yeah.
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 And the only thing that we had to hire from the outside was a boom truck to come in and set the 4 rafters that we had pre-assembled on the cement floor.
Right.
We drug them outside, and that was the only thing I had to hire an outside piece of equipment for. And honestly, we had them up in 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah,
Wow.
half an hour tops.
Wow.
We set all 6 of them.
Wow. So
Boom, 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 boom.
So you didn't have to have that truck very long.
Do.
Huh.
Yeah, but we're to caution. Most of those guys have a minimum.
Right.
3 hours.
3 hour minimum.
Paid for 3 hours. We were done in 15 minutes.
Right.
I didn't put two and two together until after we'd hustled, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm paying for a minimum anyway. So it was no big deal. But no, we had Boomer. Right. Boomer's here out of Howell, Michigan. Did a great job. Great job. Cool. Our opinion was, there's so many steel-sided pole barns out there that you can go to the home improvement store and buy the kits from them, or a local lumber company, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with those.
Sure.
I grew up, using those, built one at my parents' house, et cetera, but to truly bring back a lost landscape, it hits us pretty close. We just really felt like this was a worthwhile investment to try to reestablish some footprint of an old traditional looking structure that's made with a modern twist. Right. So for those folks out there that are looking to be part of that movement, I would highly encourage it. It's worth the investment, because I truly believe that it will pay dividends not only in your personal enjoyment, your entertainment space, but also on the back end. If you should ever sell your property, I don't see how anyone could come and not give this a higher value when they're trying to make that purchase decision than if it was a steel-sided pole barn. Yeah. So I would absolutely recommend it. It's been nothing but enjoyable.